Ladies and gentlemen, Sting. Sean Pizzona, Sting. Billy, welcome.
Yes.
Long overdue. All right, let us kind of kick it off this way. You are a kid, a New York kid, who has made a reputation in the music industry. Tell us, how did you come to Jamaican music? I mean, I know you know, how did you come to Jamaican music?
Mix music in the household,
Mm-hmm.
mixed cultures in the family. And my mother is a record collector, even before I was born. She's a record collector, used to do parties.
And your mother is Jamaican?
Not born. I have a mixed family.
Okay.
But I had like aunties who she used to go back and forth with Jamaica with.
Mm-hmm.
And she would always carry music back home as a kid for me. So I used to hear these songs like Small Axe and, you know, further up like Eddie Lovett, you know, all of the nice particular songs that were hot at the time whenever she would travel back and forth. So I grew up in a house with every kind of music. She, first of all, her main collection of music was jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, you know, you could say R&B, soul of that time.
Mm-hmm.
But then everything was in the house. We have doo-wop, reggae, calypso, you know, Lord Kitchener and stuff like this. So there was never any boundaries. I didn't really know anything about boundaries of ethnicities and, you know, that there were regions or separations of black people.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one house, one music, one family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I only learned that growing up probably into the early teens. You know, so it was just music.
Then tell me, how did you end up playing Jamaican music? Because I know you also as a house, one of the more popular house
Well,
DJs
like
in
I
New York
said,
City.
the music has always been there. I've always been around sound system.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the sound system guys that I were around were Jamaican sound systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always that music, the sound, the influence, as far as that is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And those sound systems still always played disco. It was always music, no matter what, you know, the family parties, the house parties, any party we went to, it was mixed music.
Mm-hmm.
So there were no. I always did that as a baby, as a kid. You know, I had my first turntables at 2 years old.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? With a record player and stuff like that. So by 5, I was actually able to mix, and there was no extravagant, you know, I had like a show and tell and a close and play.
Right.
But I mixed the 2 wires together and was able to control the volumes of 2 turntables. And I was actually studying how to put 2 records together from watching the bigger guys play.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I was 5 and 6, I actually got some real turntables, some hand-me-downs.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid, I was already developing mixing skills. And from watching my older cousins and guys, everybody was a DJ back then anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And from mixing, mostly the craft, from mixing of like disco,
Mm-hmm.
is I just applied that to any other genre.
Mm-hmm.
And would just match tempos, beats, and the vibe of the music.
Mhm.
And, you know, I guess I was self-teaching how to program
Mm-hmm.
into a vibe, a different energy to tell a story of the music. So I was home. I couldn't go out nowhere as a kid. My mother was strict. So I had to learn, yeah, you need some WD-40. Let me fix it. Say something, Stan. Or you going to give me the quiet one? Yeah, this one
We
is
have
singing.
okay. And I notice in the house,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the original celebrity. Some people call him Pretty Ricky, but we know him as Ricky Warmington.
Yeah.
And before we get to that, before we get to you, because I remember Ricky being the man who had was playing reggae music in clubs in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some very, very upscale clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at the two of you together, and I'm saying, how did this come together, you and Ricky?
Well, from I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just always there. But the real constant link was when Ricky started doing the Bentley's parties
Mm-hmm.
in Manhattan and basically drew me in.
Okay,
And
so he was
then
apprentice.
Well, the thing is at that point, I had already was playing at Club Illusion. What it was before it was Club Illusion. It was Empire Inn.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at Empire Inn that was my first real residence.
Mm-hmm.
Empire Inn turned Club Illusion. Then I was doing Village Hut
Mm-hmm.
and Act 3 in the Bronx, and sometimes Sunday at Love People. So we'd already had Brooklyn covered and kind of the Bronx. So going to Manhattan now,
Mm-hmm.
that was the next level. You know, if you're playing in Manhattan, you are the elite.
Yeah. How do I say you've arrived?
Yeah, you know. So it's almost like, you know, that's the Toponaris of nightlife.
Okay.
So for reggae music to be center stage
Mhm.
in Bentleys,
Mm-hmm.
and then pushing on to Red Parrot, Silver Shadow,
Mm-hmm.
eventually Latin Quarter. These are clubs we couldn't even get in
Mhm.
regularly. So Ricky was,
Playing on
Pioneer.
those, was playing in those.
but even
clubs.
before then, he was doing like Negril and those places. When I was too young to
Okay.
party and go out.
So you were you one just for the hell of it? Were you one of those who had the false idea and was getting into the club
No,
too
no, I
young?
always knew somebody. I never had a false ID.
Okay. No, on a more serious note,
Mhm.
you built a reputation as one of the premier DJs in New York,
Mhm.
separate and apart from your production skills, with being one of the lead pioneers of the New York sound
Mhm.
that is dancehall. What did you see any changes that while you were coming up, or did you see anything there that you identified as something that would have become what it has turned out to be when you started out? Because when I talked to Philip,
Mhm.
Philip said to me, "We never planned none of this.
Mhm.
You know, we're just making good music." So tell me, was that the case with you, or did you actually have a vision or a dream?
Well, the only vision was to help get the music across
Okay.
around the world. Because as a young DJ, you know, I'm from the projects,
Mm-hmm.
Crown Heights, Ebbets Field.
Okay.
So playing in the early, not just in the projects, but Flatbush,
Mhm.
people's personal parties and stuff like that. I always played for mixed crowds because as a kid, you always had the American kids who were here, then you had the kids who were from the Caribbean, directly born and came over, or those who had parents.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the prejudice, especially in the early days of hip hop, where there was a lot of kids shunned reggae because
Mhm.
they didn't understand the culture, but they kind of quietly, secretly loved the music.
Mm-hmm.
So me knowing all of the different cultures
Mhm.
at this time, what I used to do, even if I'm playing at a party that's predominantly hip hop, I would always squeeze in some reggae,
Okay.
even if it's disco or, you know, at like early 80s when we still was playing a lot of the good disco, R&B. I would squeeze in some reggae.
Mm-hmm.
And who didn't like it, you better learn to like it. And who liked it, supported, you know, came on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Small parties, but you had 60, 75 people in a house party. You know, you're able to influence.
Mm-hmm.
And it was vice versa when I would play for the reggae crowd. I would always shoot in some house music, some dance music, which wasn't really the in thing to do. But
Mhm.
you had some people that liked the funky beat,
Mm-hmm.
and you're introducing music. You cannot be afraid to introduce music as a DJ. So at that time, I had nothing to lose. I'm here to promote and push different genres of music, different cultures into people's ears.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing was just to always push the music, no matter what.
Did you at any point see anything coming to fruition in terms of people saying, well, yeah, okay, I'm pushing this, they're liking it, and it encouraged you to continue?
Mm.
What did you,
Yeah.
both at your level or even at a larger level?
Well, you know, perfect example of knowing that it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I was old enough and able to play and have a residency
Mm-hmm.
at Club Illusion,
Mhm.
Empire and Club Illusion, and play sometimes at Love People on Sunday. Remember, this is all Brooklyn and Crown Heights. So all of the kids that grew up with me are now coming to the clubs.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? No matter what, American, Haitian, doesn't matter. They were in the clubs now. So now I see the influence, the work that I was putting in from early. They're now loving all, because, you know, this is from, you were going back to the days of Yellow Man.
Okay, your
Josie
days in
Wales.
the 80s, the early 80s.
These are early 80s when I was doing the house music. I mean, the house parties, you know, projects. By the time 85, 86 came, that's when I was in the clubs, old enough to play. So those people who were coming to the local parties were now old enough to come to the clubs, and even the older people were following because I had a little following, and they knew that I would play music, and they're just there to support as a kid from a neighborhood.
Okay, now there was an explosion by 85. I remember it well because by that point I had gotten out of college. I was off radio because I used to do my radio show at City. I was off radio. Now I was a full-fledged journalist traveling the country, writing and all of that. But something happened. HCNF was like a fulcrum. The club scene in Manhattan kind of regenerated and had a life. Because at that point, by the time 86 and 87 came around, Ricky was having his thing, Davey was having his thing, David was having his thing, and people, and everybody, it was happening. And I remember being at the underground, when we were at the underground, and all the kids that came, and why I brought up the ID thing is because I saw more fake IDs that time than most police officers see in their lifetime. And I remember a lot of the kids that came, they were not Jamaicans. And they were not second generation coming out of parents who were Jamaicans either.
Exactly.
We had a term for them. We used to call them Jafakans. And what was interesting, at that point also, I was writing a piece for the Smithsonian as part of a study that the Smithsonian had looked at how Jamaican popular culture had just burgeoned and just found its way in mainstream. And they were wondering, and they said, let's do a study. So they had Carl Stone, I think, in Jamaica, me in New York, and Dr. Jay Comiak at the Folk Life Division doing for DC, and they contacted me and I was doing it. So my job really when I was working at the underground was paying attention to what the hell was going on and documenting it. And that's when I realized, because as a lover of music, people don't understand that sometimes while you are in the music, you're not seeing what's taking place. I had to now shift that hat off my head and turn myself around and say, okay, you're going to have to start analyzing what's going on here. And that's when I said, wait a minute. Witty, Small Ass Woman, Barrington Levy, Murderer, Tunes, Skian. And you started to see something bubbling up, different from the earlier part of the 70s when Ken Williams would have his what do you call that reggae, sort of a song competition thing where people come in. You saw more now. And I think at that point, because I remember when I sat with David and I said to him, can we get the two audiences together? We wanted to get African Americans, and because people kept telling me African Americans don't like reggae. I kept laughing because I sat and watched African Americans. And my experience is this: Jamaica, 1973, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, Run Jamaica. There was nothing bigger than that in Jamaica. And I watched the same people who love that, Bob Marley going to the Carib and upstage Marvin Gaye. And I went to the arena and saw him do the same thing. When I came, so I said, oh, hold on a second. These people, and then when I came here, and then I saw the Garden with him, I think it was 70 or 79, Copeland can bear me out on this. Then I saw the 4 nights at the Apollo, and I'm like, those weren't West Indians, all West Indians. They were a lot of African Americans, the Commodores. So I said to David, I don't know who's talking and saying what, but I know the African Americans were coming for reggae. And I remember something Bob Law had said on one of his visits at City College. He said to us when we were asking him, he said, music is about demographic marketing. And then it kicked into me. I said, nobody has ever crafted a marketing plan for reggae to an urban market. Hence Vivian Scott and Shabba and Specialist. That was it. Guys like you picked up on that and ran with it. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, first of all, before we even go any further, while we're talking about the underground and David Levy, for those who are watching, you may not, he tries to play it low key, but if it wasn't for Stan and Ricky Warmington, it would be no David Levy underground
Well,
Fast
David,
forward.
let me be clear. David has said that on radio.
Well, I'm saying it so people know. They always, everyone gets their start, their boost, or whatever. But who really acknowledges those early humble beginnings are very few. So I'm just here to say it.
I can appreciate it.
So handle it. Who don't like it, that's the truth.
But this is about
You know, I
not
keep
me.
it 100. Well, I don't,
Alright.
well, I'm just saying. While I'm
Alright.
here, I'm talking about it.
Now, at that point when everything blew up, everything blew up. Bob had passed, and there was this hue and cry that, okay, reggae going dead. Got the king gone. And who going to carry it? Then all of a sudden, dancehall started kind of work its way into something. And it was a new sound. It was a little bit different. Right?
Yeah, young people. Young
And-
people always carry it.
Now, tell me what happened there, how your point of entry with the music, with the Big Up and the Mumpy and those tunes.
Well, we're going from the 80s to 90s now. Where we at? 80s or the 90s?
The end of the 80s going into the 90s.
Well, you have to. The underground was very important in, I guess, the early manifestation of what was to come, because you had a place where you could put
And that
where
was
we had.
and that was by design.
Yes.
Because that was in the back of my head.
Right.
And David, I sold David on that idea.
Right. So we had a place where we had 2,000 people every Friday night. Period. If not more, a little less, but rotating crowds. So when you have that many people for ongoing 4 years of programming music, you are creating another culture, or you're expanding at least a culture into different homes. Yeah, black, white, Chinese, Spanish, Latin, you know, all kind of mixtures in there. And people are taking these memories and going home with them. They're just not going to come to the club and forget what they lived at the club. So now they're taking that and playing it for other people. Then it becomes cool because young people influence young people, and the music grows. So by the time we were finishing up with Underground and we started on Kiss FM, we're at the next level of getting the music out, broadcasting, which is a whole
Different level.
different level of getting the music out there. You know, and once it's cool, it's trending, people follow.
I think for me at that point, because I had really, by 79, I remember a conversation with myself, Hapti Selassie, Jarice Black, and Paul Fish Martin. I'd gone to the African Street Carnival. And I kept saying to myself, everywhere I go where reggae is, all I see is white people. And I couldn't figure out why black people weren't a part of it. So by the time I approached David with that, and I said, how do we get African Americans? Because David was told, and I'm going to say this publicly, he was told by a number of Caribbean jocks, African Americans are not going to like it. They don't like it. They fight it. And to which my response was, Babla, tell me that nobody never do it. Nobody's ever marketed. How are you going to get people? And I think a lot of it was ignorance and not understanding how you market music. People just assume that you make a nice song. My brother Mikey Bennett said to me in '85, why I can't just write a good song and play it and people just like it? And I said, because you're in America where the market is balkanized, where different markets, different audiences. And that's how record companies market it. And I said to him, if we can peer them, because I told him it couldn't happen. I remember those phone calls came when I was living at Rockaway. And he would come, Stan, boy, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, so-and-so it can't happen, it can't happen, it can't happen. And I said, David, I've seen it happen. Trust me. And he did it. I didn't do it. I won't take credit for it. He did it. And at one point, he was on so many stations, mainstream stations, playing it. He brought guys like you, DJ Carlton, DJ Roy, DJ Patrick, all of them guys. Brought them all in. But what was interesting for me is, I remember one night I'm standing at the door because I was kind of the floater, and at 1 o'clock I'd get a call from David, how it going? And Sunday I get the call, we'll go over what happens. And I remember one night I saw the guys from Run DMC. They drove up on a truck back and jump out and they asked me, yo, Shelly Thunder perform here, man? And I'm like, Leon, Sterling, these African Americans, said to me, that's Run DMC. I said, no. And then I started to look, and you see a Bobby Brown pop into if he's in town, pop into the. So you knew something was happening when those people started showing up there. I remember one night I saw John McEnroe outside of the underground with two girls. And I'm saying, wait, something is happening here. People are paying attention to the music. And then, of course, the young generation were doing it. So therefore, when you started to make music and all the other producers who were making music, you kind of had an audience.
Yeah. Well, not only had an audience, I had, I guess, seasoning that most didn't have, because I grew up in America.
Okay.
I grew up around R&B, around pop music, around jazz. I was always able to incorporate different sounds, different, I guess, a different energy into the music, but still keep the foundation of what, I guess, what dancehall is or was becoming, and create more of a, I guess, an open poppy type of sound, but still keep the grunge at the same time. So I just attribute it to that.
Now, run some of the names of some of the tunes that you produce, because for the most part, people know a song and they only know the artists that do it. They don't know the person who actually put, in all fairness, put it together.
I can play some.
Okay.
He's got it connected if you want.
Run them for me.
Yeah, is the volume up? That's something, I guess you can hear it. This was Bedwork Sensation, Baja Jed. This was the song that began, or got people's attention in the nightclubs and the dance halls, that gave way for Old Carolina to get heard. This is people think it's the Old Carolina rhythm, but Bedwork Sensation was the first tune on it.
And that was yours?
That's the one that bust, yes. I did the rhythm. I dreamt the rhythm. And I got up, and I got this little loop. Yeah, it's a house. I had a little studio, so I put the loop together. And I called all the guys. Fox, Screechy, Baja. Shaggy was brand new. Fox had just brought him in at the time. I said, I got this idea, listen to this rhythm. And they didn't really get it at first because it wasn't the traditional movement or tempo of dancehall.
Right, 'cause nothing that I heard at that time sounded anything close to this.
But once I explained to them, it was just pretty much you just got a DJ in halftime. Then they kind of figured it out and gradually started putting together these styles, and you just hear them all rambling. And once I heard the little styles coming along, I said, all right, studio time. Just booked some time, went in, licked the rhythm properly, and just started voicing.
What came next? Because I want people to
Bedwork
get it.
Sensation was first on the rhythm. Then Old Carolina is actually Screechy's idea. That came from Screechy Dan, and we gave it to Shaggy. And then that's how Old Carolina.
You have it on there?
Old Carolina, is it even on here? I don't even know if I put it on there. Let's see here.
Ricky.
Oh yeah, it's there, it's there. All right, so that song, Old Carolina, was done. Basically, all the energies, Fox, Screechy, we all put in ideas to get it where it was at. To, give Shaggy that sound. This song was underestimated by me and quite a few other folks. We was like, hey, it's Carolina done over. Bedwork was our tune because it was, had the sexiness in it for the girls. But Robert, actually Peter McKenzie called it too. He said that's a big hit.
Okay.
I'm like, all right, Peter, cool. All right, big up Peter McKenzie. First one to even carry me to the studio. But Robert Livingston heard it. And at that point, at that time, Robert and Cat just split from Robert managing Cat. So he was like kind of over the whole artist thing. When Shaggy got wind that Robert wasn't working with Cat anymore, he's blowing up his voice box. Was it answer machine back in the days? So he's like, yo, I want you to manage me. So Robert came to me and was like, yo, who's this kid? He's, want me to manage him, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I ain't doing management. I'm just making the records. So if you feel the vibes, I'll set up a meeting, whatever. So I said, all right, set it up, because the tune is, at that time, Clinton Lindsay was playing it, Philip, and it was getting some momentum. So he felt he could take it and blow it up. So I put up a meeting. I put a meeting together with us, me, Shaggy, and Robert, and we went to the accountant's office, Robert's accountant in Queens. And that day is where we actually formed Big Yard.
Okay.
From that little meeting. And Robert explained what he's going to do with the record, and said, all right, let's go. So we took the record to Greensleeves, Crick Cracknell and the guys in England,
Mm-hmm.
and got it signed to Greensleeves, and they worked the chart, and then boom, blew up in England, #1 hit,
It was a gold single, right?
massive, yeah, in
Okay.
England. That, go ahead.
Going forward, after so Carolina and those two, but then there was that series of other tunes that came in a
Yeah.
somewhat different vein.
Yeah, well, you have this, big up.
So now we're into something else, because the duo of the establishment of a duo between Raven and Shaggy was running the place. What was running through your mind, and how were you looking at it going forward?
Well, first of all, Big Up was done before Old Carolina. So we're going before Old Carolina. This idea came about because of Hot This Year.
Phillips Hot this year.
Yes.
Dirtsman.
Yes. What happened was, well, the funny story it's so much to tell, not enough time. Hot This Year, I was in the studio with Philip, and Philip had just got the tape back from Jamaica. So he's going through the tape, listening. And so he just happened to go through, past that rhythm, pull up the drums, and then I hear the bass, and I'm like, Phil, what is this? And then he push up Dirtman's voice. I'm like, dude, this got to come out. I need this for the club.
You don't have Hot this year in it?
No.
Okay.
But I'll go up to that just because we're going into why Big Up even happened. So we mixed Hot This Year the next day. I cut it on dub, and I'm playing it that weekend at Ricky's party. What was it? 40th Street.
43rd.
Eh?
43rd, Negro 2.
Oh, Negril too, yes.
Negril, yeah.
Negril too.
Right. So I'm playing the rhythm, and Fox is there, Screechy's there, Shaggy's there. And they're like, yo, what is that? I'm like, this is Philip's tune, So they're like, yo, we want to be on that. What's up? So I called Philip. The next morning, I said, yo, I want to put the guys on the rhythm. He said, all right, come, Philip. Come in, man, do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I recorded Mompy, and I recorded Pose Off with Fox and Screechy.
Okay, here, you have those two tunes?
I have Pose Off.
Okay.
Pose Off is the biggest.
I just kind of want people to get a sense of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Is that playing?
Yes, we're going to have to take it down a little bit. We'll pick this up on the other side as we go to the commercials. We have to, we have to pay some bills in the place, so. But we picked up back with Sting, and remember to call 718-554-8598 if you want to ask Sting any questions, have any comments. Yes, and we're back. Ready for me, sir?
Yes, let's go.
No, one of the reasons why I do things like this is because I think a lot of people don't know a lot of things about our music. And I feel it is important that I bring people like you. So we stopped off at Pose Off.
Red Fox and Screechy Dad.
Right. Now, for those of you who, unless you're living on a rock, Screechy Dan, Red Fox, the Brooklyn President Street Massive, that whole crew that was there.
James Bond, you can go down the line. Whole bunch.
Talk to me a little bit about what you saw happening while you were doing that, because you're a keen observer of what was happening. Talk a little bit about what you saw happening while you were putting all this together.
It was just talent. Raw talent. And talent then wasn't just, some regular. These guys were like stars. They just haven't been heard yet. So I'm like, these guys need to be put on a platform, And I had the platform. The platform was the clubs at the time. So my plan, actually, when I, reached Screechy and Fox and them guys, is basically, because they didn't have a lot of records out. So I'm like, all right, well, let's make some dubs. You know what I'm saying? I'll play them in the club, and people can learn who you are and get you popular. I didn't really have an idea that I was going to be making records in the next couple of years to come. But the dubs got so popular that they were becoming anthems in the club. And people asking for these records, because I used to put them on the cassettes too and sell them at Superpower.
No, you're dating yourself.
Right.
You're talking about cassettes.
So these records were getting popular. So at one point, I'm like, well, we need to just make records and get them put out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Signet wound up coming in. Because,
Okay.
brethren of mine, Nolan Rowland,
Mm-hmm.
approached me and said, hey, you got this guy, Ben, who is the brother of Will Sokolov, who owns Sleeping Bag Records,
Mm-hmm.
was interested in doing a label. So basically, we joined forces, and that became Signet Records. And that was the outlet to put out the songs. So Pose Off, which was on Philip's label,
Mm-hmm.
which Philip never liked Pose Off, you know.
Really?
Yeah. How I got Philip to put out Pose Off, I was on Kiss at that time. He liked Mumpy
Mm-hmm.
and Hot This Year at the time. I said, all right. So I started playing it on Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then the calls started coming in to VP. Yo, Pose Off, Pose. And Philip had to press it. And eventually he loved it.
Oh.
So that's a little behind the scenes with Pose Off. So after that blew up, I said, well, I need a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, went to Raf. Raf had this drum program playing. I'm like, Raf, give me that.
Mm-hmm.
Took that, bass line, extra stuff, sound effects. That became Big Up. Now, when I did that song originally was Just Shaggy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that. Now I don't have the version with me, but I'll play it next time. Just Shaggy alone. But I was like, this ain't it. It's missing something. It's okay, but it ain't there. I can't put this out. So Shaggy always parted with Rayvon. So he called up Rayvon. Rayvon came in, played it for him, and Rayvon, 1-2, had the
Wow.
hook.
Okay.
No time. I'm like, that's
That's
that ish right there.
Okay.
So that's how that became a combination, just vibes. Boom, cut it, put the rest of them out, Screechy, Skin Out, a whole bunch of them. Matter of fact, that's the first song on that rhythm that Terra Fabulous ever voiced, because I went down to Jamaica with the rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and I voiced Wedding Ring on the Big Up rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And I had big plans to do, a little thing with Terra Fabulous. And by the time I left Jamaica, by the time I reached back, Bobby Digital had songs out with him. It was like everybody just pounced on this kid. And that was Terra Fabulous' career.
No, just deviate for a minute. How did the producers in Jamaica react to you? Because what we're seeing at that time was a producer now making hits out of New York, which was unheard of. Because like I said back then, a tune would not get any love unless it come from Jamaica and it being played. Now you're talking about a burgeoning industry, and you as one of the leading people. There are other producers too, but you're one of the leading persons who are producing tunes. And
Right.
eventually we end up with somebody like Bobby Condas later on.
Well, those who were pretty much stationed in Jamaica, there was some kind of, not a vibes.
I would a foreign boy.
Not even that. It was just kind of like they were just watching. Because at the same time, remember, I was a DJ first.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing all the records in the club. So I'm busting their records. So they
Oh.
started making records for New York.
Wow.
New York was a testing ground. They would call up Superpower, see if this would work in New York. And, Ron and them would pick and choose, play me stuff, and would say, this can work. And then give back jammies. And them guys would say, this one. And
Okay.
choose which one to put out. So we were the beta team,
Mm-hmm.
basically, at the club. So when it came out to the producer's side, I don't know if they even realized it was the same person, but whatever, it was just a little,
Mhm.
vibes is a little bit funky.
Mhm.
Not bad, but just they weren't as receptive.
Let's move forward now. What came next for you?
After Big Up,
Mhm.
well, after Big Up was Oh Carolina. And once Oh Carolina bus, I just got to go in between, I can't remember if it was before. I got to go look at the dates on the records. But before we go to Shaggy,
Mm.
it's either right before or right after. I think it's before. It's before. Before Boombastic,
Mm.
I did this song, which a lot of people should know. So that's Barris.
I'm quite sure a lot of people out there did not know that this was your production.
Yes, I did the rhythm. It was my rhythm,
Mm.
full rhythm, and then I just had Dennis Halliburton
Mhm.
play it on a live piano that was in the studio at Philip.
Right.
So Robert and I produced the vocals, and it's funny. I felt a funny story. I had just finished playing at the club, and we had the session with Barris.
Mm.
So Barris started singing, and it was good. And I went to sit on the couch, and knocked out. And woke up pretty much towards the end of the voicing. So I just, after that was done, all right, goodbye. That's when I started chopping up, putting things in order, and then produced the rest of the song, and we just put it out. Simple as that.
So what was next?
There's other songs in between. Well, I got to touch this. Before all of this, before the Shaggies, before my first releases, my first actual recordings that I actually did, I can't say produce, even though it's in the producers category. I recorded and mixed these songs, which actually made history. And I'll just play it.
El General.
Yeah, so I recorded and mixed those first two songs, which became reggaeton. At Philip Smart, at HENF. These were done at HCNF.
Well, obviously you caught me by surprise because I didn't know these were those were your tunes. And more importantly, what we're talking about is a sizable
Big up Carl Miller.
a sizable amount of what dominated New York 80s, 90s.
Yeah, well, at this time I was on the radio at Kiss FM. So I had the power to program. And I know I had a strong Latin audience that followed me through the years. So when I got the call from Carl Miller, he needed help he said he had a Spanish kid to do reggae. So he said, could I help him? I said, yeah, all right, good, let's go. Philip, I wound up meeting Mikey Ellis, who I knew already from the streets, Panamanian youth, who actually brought L to Carl. So I said, all right, basically, look, I don't know Spanish, so Mikey, I'm just going to make sure he's in key and on timing, and you tell me what he's saying so we can make sure it makes sense. And that was as simple as that.
Wow.
Done, mix, put it on dub, played it on Kiss FM, blew up.
Okay.
And then I guess after that, they dubbed it reggaeton. Because before that, we only know it as reggae español.
Right, that's
earliest was like Gringo, Killer Ranks, Nanda Boom, them guys was doing it, and a few more. But those are the early beginning stages of reggaeton,
Wow.
which started in New York, Brooklyn.
That is interesting. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's a whole nother episode.
I told you when you came on my platform that you would get history.
I'll give you one more treat, though.
This man about
It's too much. It's too much music, bro. I did this
Drop
mix,
it.
which a lot of people don't know, which is another story with Shabba, how Shabba even reached into the United States, how and why. But this is Shabba.
Wait on the story. Okay, hear the song.
Yeah, it's a mix. I didn't produce it. It's Steely and Clevie, but I just did a mix on it for Sony.
Girls graduation.
Too much music.
Wow.
There's a whole nother story with Shabba, but that's the next episode. But I did that mix, which was also on a US 12-inch and a European 45.
Wow.
Harder to find a 45.
So Charles Moore, if you're listening, you say Sting is your favorite DJ. I'm quite sure you're walking away feeling,
Respect.
Too
much music. All right, so let's push on because there's not enough time to play everything, but we're going to try to skip. The next big song, I'll just play it.
Okay, now you heard two different mixes of this tune. I've heard a bunch of stories about how that Marvin Gaye mix come. Let's get it directly from the man who did it. Sting.
The mic on? Hello. Oh, there we go. Well, original was the original. The first, I want to say that Boombastic was supposed to be a B-side. I was arguing with the record label that Boombastic is the hit, and they stood me down that it was the A-side, which was in the summertime.
Okay.
I'm like, no, not gonna happen. Because what used to happen back then, if the distributor ordered records, if record stores ordered records from a distributor, on the box it would only be the A side title that was listed. So if Boombastic was on the B side, they wouldn't know which record to order because they wouldn't see Boombastic. They would only see in the summertime. So as a DJ, you know what song is gonna be the dance floor. So I said, all right, just make it a double A. So if it was A side and double A side, you would get both titles on the sheet when you order the records. So at least I know it'd be visual. So when Boombastic played and people started to ask for Boombastic, they would know what 12-inch to order.
Okay.
And that's how Boombastic was part of the success of. Now, the remix came about because the record had its limit in America. No, but that's not even reggae. What is it? There is no real category for boombastic. So we needed something else. So I was fighting myself with either I'm going to do the Marvin Gaye sample, vibes, or Isley Brothers, For the Love of You, because that was a very popular.
Right.
You couldn't play that at any reggae party. You could not play it at any reggae party at that particular time.
Right.
But I just wound up going with the Marvin Gaye because it's more harder, And I had to get it 12-inch mastered by the next day. So book time in the studio. And I did that remix in like 4 hours.
Wow. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the story.
And
the
that's
story of how Marvin Gaye found his way into Shaggy's music.
now, for all
by
you
Sting.
producer geeks and DJ geeks, that remix actually, that vocal is from the acapella of the 12-inch. So I actually played that vocal from the record, from the vinyl, onto the tape. I had to mix it in time. Like any DJ does acapellas on top, because it just wasn't enough time to be bouncing tape. So I, did the vocal. It was a different key, so I ran it through the SPX 90, changed the pitch, and just flew it on there.
Wow.
I'll give you one more secret.
Okay.
The girl, if you listen closely to the song, there's a girl laughing and all that stuff. That's me. So listen back to the tune carefully. And the trick to that was, it was recorded at 15 IPS, and we just sped the tape down, all the way down. Me and Dennis was in the studio. Just pitched the
Halliburton?
tape. Yes, Halliburton. Pitched the tape all the way down, and I put on a high-pitched voice. So when the tape sped up again, it
Sound
had a
like
very
you're
light,
laughing.
girly voice. And I just roll off all the low end, give it a girly sound. So, bless you.
Next track.
All right, fast forward past Boombastic. I'm just going to go jump into, before I give it a big, I'll give it a second big. Questions?
No, I'm listening to it, and I'm saying to myself, we're looking at the history is unfolding here, because the common understanding of this is that there's a big tune with Shaggy, but this is the nucleus, this is the fulcrum of where it all happened.
I made
So,
that track in my house,
Ladies and gentlemen,
Brooklyn.
like I said, my show will always bring you original. My show will always write the history. And Mike Jarrett and Keelan Beckford and all of you, Answer Meditation, every one of you that I've been telling you, write the story. I am helping, now this platform will help you to write the story, because one of the things that bothers me about reggae, and Ricky was joking with me and saying I'm going to embarrass me, because and I know exactly what I'm talking about, is that there's so much misinformation about what actually took place.
Missing links.
And people have filled in things that are not true. And I was talking to somebody about that yesterday, and I said, I've read things in books that I was there when it was happening, and that's not how it happened. Hence the reason I decided that I wanted to bring Sting, and I'm going to bring whoever I can in here, Ricky, whoever, to tell the story. 'Cause remember, we started our project in 2013. We ran out of money and whatever, where we're interviewing everybody, because we want, essentially what I want everybody to do, is tell them story. I want everybody to tell them story, so that when some other people come and get it second and third hand, people realize, no, Sting know it, Ricky know it, Mikey know it. That's really where I want to go with this, because I think any people who allow others to just simply ride or write their history for them, you deserve whatever they wrote, because you didn't write it. And that's why when I end my show, I always say, this is all I wrote for today. That was my closing mantra at Philip, and this is all we wrote for today. Because I think it is important that we tell our story ourselves. The influences, the people, the things, the background that you bring to it, jazz, classical music, all of what you hear growing up. People hear it coming out in the music, and they're wondering. And I have African American friends who say, but that's so like, and they will bring somebody from the past, and I said, it is not foreign. He probably heard it when he was a child.
Absolutely.
The producers. So, as you say, Bob Marley used to say when them ask him about music, him say, John create no wire fence. In other words, there are no boundaries. music is just something that brings people together and fuse it together. I have a friend, African American, her parents are Jamaican. She used to walk with Black Uhuru, Third World albums and go to the clubs. And because she could get into any club, there was no club in New York City. I won't call her name because she's not going to like it, that she couldn't get into. And she would bring it and she'd have them play it. And people would wonder. And eventually people ended up liking it. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, that is big and that is huge. Because you have a generation now, and one of the things that bothers me about this generation, and maybe I'm overstating it, but this is where I comment, this is my point of entry. A lot of them don't seem to understand what went before. Hopefully hearing you and others like you will kind of have them develop an appreciation and a respect for what actually went into it. All the melange of influences that came together. Anyway, enough of my talk. Hit it again for me.
Well,
we're ready.
The last cut was Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And that rhythm, and this one I'm going to play now, was made same day in my house in Brooklyn, Canarsie.
Right.
Brooklyn.
My old neighborhood.
Not Manhattan, not the Bronx, not Jamaica. Brooklyn. Big up Brooklyn.
And if you love Brooklyn,
hold on.
Boss Too Blank.
Volume. That's me saying it wasn't me.
Wow. Hold on.
Free labor. I never even put on the
you're a producer,
credits.
and typically what we know a producer to do is someone who produces a track. Mm-hmm. You play, you write, and now you're telling me that you're singing and...
Oh, I'm on many tracks. I just never used to put the credit down. I didn't know that you could actually get paid for being on it. Now I understand why Khaled and Puffy is on everybody's damn song. All you got to say is, "We the best!"
Almost every song.
And then you get paid for that. Neighboring rights.
Background sing.
Wow.
I do a lot of background. Whole heap of background.
All right.
Anyway, next tune.
Moving right along.
I'm just going to try to stay in chronological order. Volume up. All right, shout out Tony Kelly. That's originally Tony Kelly's rhythm. And then I just took it and did the rest of the magic. Big up Birch. Birch did the organ. How I got Rick Rock, that cathedral sound. So a little trick to producers. I literally got, those party mix bowls with the pretzel and big bowls. I just took all the pretzels out and cut it, and I had Rick Rock singing to the party bowl.
Really?
And give me a big cathedral sound. And then I had him do it at different distances from the mic to make it sound like people. Because when you're picking up from a microphone, you have rows of people.
Right.
You have different levels of pickup on the mic, different textures. So I just had him go 1 foot back, 1 foot back, 1 foot back, and sing in the party bowl on the close-up. Mm-hmm. That's how I got the cathedral. Sound big. You got to be creative.
What else do you have in your goodie bag for us?
All right, so chronological. Let's just move up to the next one. The next big song was this Volume.
Dennis Brown would be very happy to hear, to know what they did with this song.
Yeah, big up Sly and Robbie. That was definitely a full combination right there of producers and, the originators of the rhythm on Dennis Brown. So that was next in line. I actually did these songs. I did Fight This Feeling with Barris.
Right.
And this song, pretty much the same month. So volume up, because you need this one to pump.
Trying to mix up the original.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was one I did with Sasko. Same time as Barris, pretty much. Same month.
Let me ask you this. What drives you? What drives you? How do you... I once asked Sly how he was able to be so successful. Every generation of reggae music, he's had not just local Jamaican hits, but international hits. And the answer he gave me was, he said, listen, I keep my ear to the ground and see what's out there in the space.
Yeah.
And then I look at what we have, and then I try to merge it. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, my thing is I'm a DJ first. But then
so you have that advantage of being
always DJ first. I don't give whatever you do. My focus is what's going to work on the floor, and from my experiences, what's going to work in an audience.
Wow.
On a stadium. When you touch that song on stage, will people pick up that energy? Or is it going to be a dead song where people are going to be like,
That means if I decide to
Next.
do a music show, you know you're going to have to come mix for me.
no, well, I mean, I
Because-
always program. What do you think did the show with David? I program the music.
Okay.
It's about programming. Same thing with DJ. If you're a good DJ, you have to tell a story. You have to know how to program. It's not that you come play the hot records for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
A real DJ can play from beginning to end. He doesn't need an opener. He'll know how to be patient, build up the crowd, bring them to a hype, bring them down a little bit, bring them back, let the bar make some money, make the people exchange from the dance
Wow.
floor to the bar. Let the club make some money.
Mm-hmm.
Make the promoter like you. If you make money for the promoter will hire you back.
Mm-hmm.
So a real DJ will know how to program and control the crowd and not just stay stuck in his computer like he's playing in his basement to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem what I see with a lot of these guys out here. They're not paying attention to the people. And they're afraid to program music
Wow.
other
Okay.
than what everybody else is
Yeah,
playing.
before you play another tune, you've segued into something I want to touch really quickly before we go on to any more music. You're talking about today's music when you said so a lot of guys don't know. What do you see? How do you see what's in the space now being played, and people hyping all over it?
I don't have a comment on that.
Oh, okay.
It's the kids' music, and I'm not going to fight it.
Okay.
But, there are other kids who like traditional music that's not so computerized or
Mhm.
focused on one subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
which is degradation of women and gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
There's other things to talk about,
Okay.
but it's being dominated by that because there's no filterage. There's no gatekeepers to the music, or at least to say, all right, this is good. You need some Batman, you need some girls tune, you need some slackness, but you also need some love. Nobody's pushing the love anymore,
Okay.
so we're missing the element.
Or the culture.
Or the culture, the politics, reality. What is the problem in our communities?
Uh-huh.
Nobody's dealing with the realities. People who are intelligent are dumbing down their lyrics just to be in,
Oh.
instead of standing up for what's, the road may be a little longer, but speak some truth.
Now, I was listening
Yeah,
to the project that you had on Friday night when I was by the studio.
Miss Sade.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I think you're addressing that very problem, and we'll see how it plays. Okay, ready for you again.
All right, I'm just going to bust your head one more time because you're not ready for this. You're not ready. You ready? Volume up.
Yeah, man.
All right. Big up Tony Kelly. It was Tony Kelly's rhythm. Big up Not Nice. I think he recorded the vocal, and I did all of the edits and positioning and structuring. Now, the funny thing with that, if you listen to all the Cartel's tunes, you realize this is the only one with no auto-tune.
Really?
That was a special request, and I was like, nope, I ain't putting no auto-tune on this.
Wow.
I don't business.
For
And
those who don't know, what
that's
is autotune and why is it so bad?
It's not bad. It's just misuse and over-abuse.
Okay.
It's abuse. Overuse and abuse. It's robotic. It's supposed to tune your voice and keep it from
Going off key?
going off key, And T-Pain just took it and did something else with it. And everybody just ran with it and turned it into robotics,
Next tune.
Just real quick, let me play this one for my brethrens. Where is it? This thing went out of... hold on there. This is obviously not turntables. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
And Red Fox, of course, the great Red Fox. Just to let the world know, if it wasn't for Red Fox, there'd be no Shaggy.
Wow.
We'll go into that on the next.
Yes.
But
'cause
anyway.
we're running out of time.
Eh?
No, it's a DJ.
Red Fox, the artist. This is what's out right now. This is Sade,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna play it.
He's always innovating and creating,
Moving forward with the music, you know.
and this conversation could go on all night. Unfortunately, we're on a platform where there's time, and I see the big man standing over there ready to go on the wheels of steel, and we also have Miss Ali, who's going to present her health and nutrition segment. So, Sting,
Thanks for having me.
I know you'll be back. And
It's too much music.
it's a pleasure having you here in the studios for the show.
Big up Super
And-
Do
And I will
Robert
definitely
Livingston.
bring back.
team, you know.
And-
Peter McKenzie Foundation.
For real.
Mikey McDonald.
I
Dennis
hope-
Ralph Nasty.
I hope Peter listening because I hit him up on Facebook and told him that you're going to be here.
Mhm.